Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner Podcast. I'm Dillon, I'm your host, and this week, so this is the week of April 25th, Matt and I are actually live and in person to ourselves.
Doesn't happen very often.
No.
First time ever, actually.
Yeah, no studio audience or anything like that, but we are live and in person. So, one, good to be here, and two, we are on location in Raleigh, so not in Michigan or California.
There are no complaints I can make about the weather. It's sunny and it's beautiful outside, and looking forward to going out there soon.
Yeah, we're gonna hit the lake and spend some time on the water. And unlike where I live, it's probably gonna be like decently warm.
I heard from my wife this morning that the storms are supposed to roll back into where I'm from this afternoon. So it's nice to come out of there for a couple days.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, and even so we're here in Raleigh to shoot some content, to get together, to find ways to improve, and really all the things that we end up bringing you guys each and every week. So it's fun to be here.
Yeah, man, this has been a cool experience. For anybody who hasn't heard of Yonder Digital, you should definitely check it out. Dylan and his partner Chris are doing some pretty amazing things, and I came down to shoot some content for my construction company, and it has been a definitely worthwhile adventure. Looking forward to seeing the output.
Well, and that's just it, guys, is you can shoot content in a lot of ways. You can do it in studio, you can do podcasts like we've been doing and on Zoom and post those up, or you do some professional stuff, you do some stuff on site, some stuff with your guys. There's a lot of way to capture those stories and ultimately pass on some knowledge to everybody else.
I think the key is just doing something, right? Creating content. That is where we have gone as, not even just as an industry, as a society, right? All business is now based in some level on the content you can provide and how good the stuff is you can get out into the world. And the only way to do that effectively is to start telling your story, and video is a fantastic way to do that.
Yeah, you get a lot of stuff out of video, right? You get you get all the modalities of transfer, right? You get nonverbal communication, which is like 90% of it, and then the body language is like 60%, something stupidly high like that.
Yeah.
And then tonality is like the 30, and then the words you actually speak are 10. So
So what you're saying is nobody really listens to the shit I'm saying, but they're watching me.
Well, and the emotion that you convey, like in how you say it, right? Which is pretty cool. But so you get a lot of stuff out of video, you get a lot of content, you get a lot of, you can do clips, you can do video, you can do audio, you can do pictures, right? There's all that kind of cool stuff that comes out of video, especially, and then to share that with clients, with trade partners, with others in the industry, just to show off. There's a lot of things you do.
Yeah, I mean, all marketing is good marketing, right? And it's, like I said, it's telling your story, and it's whatever you chop it up, wherever you put it out there, it's getting your name out there, it's getting your face out there. You know, like, and trust. People don't know you if they've never seen you. They don't like you if they've never talked to you, and they can't trust you if they haven't had the first two. So it's a good start at the very least.
Absolutely, and which is, it's going to lead into where we're going today, and going to talk about B2B sales, which is basically the only type of selling that we do in construction. You know, a few of you out there might be doing residential and selling to a homeowner, but by and large, we sell to other businesses, whether that's a trade partner to a general contractor, whether that's a contractor to a owner in the business of whatever they're doing, whether that's a multifamily apartment building to an office to a warehouse to manufacturing. Like, you're selling to some other business in some way, shape, or form, and we want to get into really how to do that selling so that you can get people to know, like, and trust you, and maybe shorten those sales cycles from the standard 5 years down to, let's say, 2.
I can tell you beyond any shadow of doubt, if there was a way to to effectively shrink those sales cycles down, it would be worth its weight in gold. Because that, you know, the projects that we do, typically my sales cycle is a year, maybe more. It just depends on scale. But you know, to find a way to effectively communicate with the business you're trying to sell to, if you can start shrinking those down, then everybody wins. The client gets their project faster, we get our contract faster, you know, production happens sooner. There's all kinds of benefits that we could have if we started condensing those impossibly long schedules.
Well, and I think so. Like, you look at a traditional sales cycle for a project, and it happens. So let's go the RFP route. Like, so in an RFP route, you have 3 months, 6. Like, what is the time to actually form what the RFP is
to
going to be?
package it? And, honestly, the last one that I saw was like a month, and that was pretty typical. We don't look at a whole lot of those anymore because we're trying to, you know, focus our efforts elsewhere. But you know, somewhere between a month and 3 months, let's say.
For them to put an RFP together, then they have review time of who they're going to select to come in and do presentations. So then you have another, let's say you schedule those a month out. So then the people that selected, so you've got, let's just say 4 months in that. Then once you have all the people come in and present, then you've got another couple weeks, say another month in there to select it.
Select and contract. And
approval committees, everything else. So you're into 5-6 months by that point, and then depending on project size, then you can start the design process.
Yeah, which, I mean, that in and of itself could be 3 months would be really moving, you know, on a typical project to get it designed and entitled. That's screaming down the tracks.
For like and that's like a $5-10 million project.
Yeah.
You know, to design it, entitle it, to get drawings out, for at least civil and structural, you know, it's at least a month, if not more, to really close a month for entitlements. So that's a year, but that's not really sales cycle. Now you're in the project cycle, but you know, it took 6 months on the front side, but then you had to be one of the people ready to present for RFP or that were invited for the RFP. And so you back that up that could be a year, 2.
Easily. You know, because how much time do you put into building the relationship so that you even get a chance to get the invitation? Right? If you start like tacking on all the actual timeline that goes into this game, you could pick a number, 3 years, 5 years.
Right.
You know, you got to impress somebody enough that somewhere down the line in the future, they're going to want to even send you something and want to have you respond to an RFP or, you know, whatever it may be.
And then because of that, like, they heard of you somewhere, that you did a project for somebody, and then, or you showed up at their door enough to allow you to come into it. But this is the other side of that process is, so one of the things most firms don't think about is within an RFP process, right? If you got invited because you're somewhat known, or they understand that you can do whatever it is that they're asking you to do, whether that's on the design or construction side, but you're not a front runner, right? You got invited to the dance, but you're not going home with the girl, right? Like, for sure, you know, like one of those deals, or the chance of success is slim.
Yeah.
You know, the jock had to slip and bust his face for you to get a chance in there. Is now going into that, you're being seen as a loser. And most people don't think about the psychology of that you keep coming up for these RFPs, but they always see you as second fiddle.
You're the guy that needs the practice. That's what we call it around my office. You know, you're the one that needs the practice estimating or putting proposals together or doing presentations. You're what the hell's the bridesmaid saying? Forever a bridesmaid, never a bride, whatever that means. But I think it's same idea we're getting at here. Like you have that negative connotation now will kind of follow you around until you somehow break the cycle. But if you're not getting any better, how do you break the cycle?
Well, but this is the like in know, like, and trust factor, right? They know you, they might like you, but they've never trusted you enough to award you a project.
Take a chance on you.
And they've never trusted you more than the other guy. So, but you always show up in the same manner, right? And the other guy is probably showing up in some other way that you're not, right? Whether that's as much as this is going to be cliche, on the golf course, at lunch, at the charity functions, at the ball, right? Like all these other events that are around whatever it is you're trying to go after. Because you have to remember, like in construction, we're not dealing with a $500 widget, right? I'm not trying to close you today. I'm not trying to get you to come home tonight. You know, the goal here, and I really like this, is I'm trying to get you to spend $10 million with me for the next 30 years.
It's a good way to look at it.
Especially in the contracting world, right?
Oh yeah.
Like your subs are trying to get you to do business with them, feed them, you know, millions of dollars of work a year for the next 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's just it. Like that's the perpetuity of the contracting world. You're not going to get rich and retire off of one building, one subcontract, one prime contract. It doesn't happen that way. You have to be able to generate that continuous influx, and on my side of the table, frankly, that's more difficult, I think, than on the subcontractor side. But you know what you were just getting to, yes, like my carpenters are making a move to gain my trust and my favor for the next foreseeable long-term game, so that someday, yes, then they can retire and you know go sailing or whatever they do.
Well, right, you're trying to get married, and you're trying to get married to you're building your harem out is effectively what this amounts to, if we're going to continue to use this analogy. But like, as bad as that sounds, you're trying to marry somebody for 30 years, and you're going to do a whole bunch of them, and that's it, right? But it's building long-term relationships with, you know, however many people you need to sustain your business and whatever your goals are, right? If it's, you know, 10 million, you need one, but one's a bad number in business, right?
If you got one, you got none.
You got two, that's a little better, but like you need to start having, you know, 5, 10, to where one doesn't totally wreck the ship. You know, you have 10, 20 clients in our world, you know, that's a good stable of clients. You're going to make it through probably just about any economic time, and it'll, you know, on your revenue goals, right? If each one gives you 5 million and you have 10 of them, well, you're a $50 million business. It becomes fairly simple math, so long as your economy, you know, in your area holds that number.
So let's kind of take a turn and talk about how best for those subcontractors to make those relationships, right? And I'm interested in your take, because you're at a completely different side of that table. So I'm going to let you go first, but I can tell you, you know, there's kind of like a standard playbook I've seen, right, where new subs to the market or new subs to me will take like one of 2, 3, 4 approaches to try and, you know, get into my club, quote unquote. As somebody who's on the professional side of the table, where would you see that they should start, or how would you see they should start trying to get into my good graces?
So looking at it from like, so on the design side, because so there's 2 ways to go. Like I'll take this as the design side first, and then I'll tackle subs. So on the design side, there's 2 ways that you go. You're either going to deal with institutional clients, or you're dealing with developers. Like those are the 2 paths you have. And by institutions, I mean schools, higher ed, you know, K-12, higher ed, like those types of institutions, or government and, you know, municipalities, jails, correction, justice, whatever, like government buildings, and then you've got healthcare. Those are like the 3 of like what I would call more institutional work. Healthcare is its own beast, but in there, like and it depends on the healthcare world that you're into. So for higher education, like you're going to go after RFPs. You're going to go meet board members through charity events. You're going to go meet people through other design events or figure out what they care about and meet them there. Occasionally you'll go after RFPs depending on the facility. Or in like K-12 world, you went after the bond referendum work, because then that set you up to basically do the design work on the other side of it. And you worked through like the annual principals association or other school board functions or school functions across the state in like K-12 world. So, and then that's usually, and then the same thing went for government. You know, you show up to design meetings, because they can't take you can't take them out to lunch or anything like that. So that like government gets a little tricky in that, but you feed them like information. You show up at the board meetings, you show up at these places in person and meet people, you know, at a charity event usually, or some other fundraiser or whatever is usually how you got in with them, to like meet them, and then you feed them information over time and like white papers and all that stuff, especially in the government world, because then that doesn't like that you're giving stuff away for free that has no quote value. So you get around like the whole like gifting thing, right? Giving them information is totally fine. You can't buy them lunch.
Right.
So in like the government contracting world, that was a lot of it is you get in on those, and then you do little projects here and there. And the same thing on like healthcare, the same thing on higher ed. K-12 is a little different. Usually you didn't have like a small project for the district. You did like, you won the new school or you didn't.
Yeah.
But in higher ed, usually it was like, hey, we have a classroom renovation. We're willing to give you a shot because our main guys are busy. So don't screw it up, you know. And then you get in, and then because you start to know them, now you need to form those relationships very quickly through that tiny project, which means like don't be annoying, but have a lot of meetings, almost probably for no good reason other than to have them, so that you show up, so that you get to the meeting early, you're there, you stay late, you talk about whatever they care about, and build those relationships in and around all those meetings. Like I can't tell you how much healthcare work that like we got or I found out about from showing up early, staying late, you know, or really after the meetings, that he was like, hey, so we're gonna be building this thing over here. It's coming down the pipe, just want to let you know. Cool. What do you need me to do? But on healthcare, like, so for like when we did all the work for the healthcare system that I work for, we got in, and somebody knew somebody that knew somebody, and we got in and finally got an MSA. So we had a master service agreement with them to where like all the fees were locked. We were one of 3-4 engineers for them, MEP teams, because they did split it to where they had architecture teams and then they had engineering teams, but everybody was under MSAs, so they could just hand work. They never had to bid anything on the design side. And then actually they did most of that too on the contracting side, where they had MSAs for the contractors, and it's like, hey, we're using this contractor for this project, we're using this one for that one, and that's how they ran it. So really you had to get in on the very, very front side of that master service agreement and know somebody at corporate and like work your way through that entire process, which I think takes like 2 years for MSAs anyway, master service agreements, to like get in. But once you're in, you're in. Like, so long as you don't screw anything up, you're golden. So that's how I've seen it on the design. You're taking either little projects or you're working in through, I think people really underestimate like charity events, like, and board stuff or golf outings or whatever. Even like in the community that I live in now, like I go to a lot of charity events, mainly because my wife's company supports a lot of stuff, and we get to go, like they buy tickets through whatever. But we bid on the charity auction stuff and do that, or go to, we get tickets to some of these other charity events. But like the amount of movers and shakers that are at those events, because they are, usually the people with money are fairly philanthropic and give back a lot, is like we meet a lot of people through those events. And like I'm not doing anything locally for like in my area in what I in engineering projects, but and I just meet a lot of people that have influence in the community through these charity events, and I think people just greatly underestimate the value of showing up to select events in your community and to go to that. And it's not the chamber events, it's not like the business advisory thing or whatever. I'm sure that in some communities that's maybe worth it, but like going to the sheriff's fundraiser, the sheriff's dinner, the golf outing for whatever, the Susan G. Komen whatever thing, like the breast cancer fun runs and walks, like those are all the places, you might have to pony up $500 a plate for dinner, but that's where all the decision makers end up being. So on design side, and that would be for you too on the GC side,
Yeah.
like that's where the people that are making decisions, that's where they're at.
You couldn't possibly put a value on being in those crowds, right? The amount of charity functions that we do and that we're continuing to do through the construction company, it'd blow your mind if I showed you what I've spent this year already just to lock us into those same rooms, right? And you double benefit, right? Because it is a charity function. So you are putting money to typically a very good cause. But like you mentioned, the big movers and shakers, the decision makers that I want to be in front of, they're also doing this. And they're doing it in a big way. And it's a repetition value, right? You're not going to go to one golf outing and expect to be done with it, whether you like golf or not. Like, you have to be the face that is continuously showing up to these things, that you're having little conversations with these men, these women, little chunk conversations here and there, but over the course of a year, you might see them at 3 or 4 different events, and then 3 or 4 different events the next year, and so on and so on. And that's how you start building that social capital with these people. And and everybody has fun with it, right? They're fun events. They're great to bring your spouse if that's an availability, or even if it's just your team. It helps build camaraderie inside your own 4 walls. Huge. And it's a good thing to do. And the more you do it, the better off you'll be, the better off these charities get. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that putting the Lucas for Lucas golf outing in that mix is a huge one. So anyone in our area, in the Michigan area, in the middle of June, let me know. I'll get you on a team. But there'll be all kinds of movers and shakers there, myself included.
Well, this is the thing that, like, putting on your own event, right? Like what you're doing with Lucas for Lucas, like, 1, it's a great cause and having Lucas devices. 2, it's your own event, right? And you get to control it. So if you're in a position to create a charity event, whatever that might be, and it could be something that's of cause and concern to you, it's putting all that together, getting the word out in your community. Because again, like we've talked about, like, this is all about community. Like,
yeah, 100%.
You're not outsourcing these decisions to somewhere. Corporate might not be in your local area, but by and large, the people in charge of those decisions and who gets awarded what project once corporate assigns the master service agreement, like, is up to that local construction executive at, like, the hospital. Like, for the one that I worked at in Indiana, like, corporate was out of St. Louis, but Indiana had, like, one guy that was in charge of their $300 million a year budget and awarded whatever, and then he had, like, 5 guys under him. Like, you made that guy happy.
And you make that guy happy by doing good work and by making him look good to that corporate entity wherever they might be, because they can look now on Frank in Indianapolis and say, Frank's doing a bang up job of whatever Frank does at the hospital. We're not having problems. The work is quality. It's done on time. It's done on budget. It's a constant game of making everybody else look good. That's the key to business right there, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, like, in the engineering world in particular, with the hospital systems, like, they relied more on MEP team, I think, than just about anyone else in an existing hospital. Not necessarily a new build. That is for sure an architectural lead, like in doing a new hospital.
Sure.
But in existing, because you had so much like piping and process stuff and sanitization and like med gases and all this other stuff, that whenever we went to like remodel or redo anything or add, they relied so heavily on the MEP team to come in and like just deal with it. So they wanted more than anything in renovations, which is like once it's like 90% of all hospitals. It's like they're always under
Just
renovation.
a constant renovation.
But it's like for the MEP side of that, and this is also in the trades, because that's who they rely on very heavily there, is again, once you're in, your job is to then do such a good job that they would be stupid to call anybody else. And that is your goal, is to be so good, so thorough, so knowledgeable about that facility that, you know, for like a main hospital in your given area, like you're the go-to contractor, engineer, sub for that hospital, because you know it better than anybody else. And that's where I think a lot of people really screw up that relationship is, it's just one project. You know, like I don't have time to deal with that.
There's a give and take, right? There has to be a balance, because I fight with that all the time, right? There's certain projects that they're small, right? They're so small that I know the time and the investment I'm gonna have to put into them, regardless of size, doesn't really change, right? But to your point, if you're trying to build a relationship, if you're trying to get in with someone who's going to potentially have more than just the one-off project, every single one isn't going to be a new 100,000 square foot wing or whatever it may be. You know, you're going to have to help out and help Frank in the hospital with some of his smaller needs, because he's the guy that can literally put food on your plate for the next 10 years. So when Frank needs a closet renovated, you know, while it may not be the glamorous work, it may not be, you know, some big ticket contract that you're looking for, sometimes you need to just help Frank out and do those. And like I said, you know, there is a balance, because the time and effort it takes to build a $500,000 project really is almost equal to a $10 million project on a lot of levels. All of the pre-construction work, all of the planning, the logistics, the coordinating, the contracting. Yes, the dollar values are different, the scale's off, but you know, there's a lot of work that goes into it that you're losing some of that. However, you have to take those calculated cost of risk, and stretch it across the potential that you could be getting from this individual or this company. You know, you're shooting to build a 10-year or 20-year or 50-year relationship. There's a give and take involved, I guess is my point. So when Frank has the big project, you want him to think of you first, because you're also the guy that can take care of him when he's got other annoyances he needs to handle for himself.
And there's going to be a little bit of balance in here, because it is handling those little projects, but you don't want to be known as the little project guy.
Correct.
If you want to be doing the big projects. And I've seen this go two ways. Really, like, only a few people get stuck in that small project deal. You need to just let them know, hey man, we can handle more. Like, we've got the expertise. We've done bigger stuff. We can handle it. So there's, you know, kind of seeding that idea. But on the other side, I've seen like new offices for design firms that keep getting only little projects, you know, and they can't seem to work their way into bigger projects, more work, and then that office gets labeled as like, because they're losing money left and right on these projects, and it's like nothing ever goes anywhere. And after like 2 years, you can only eat crow for so long.
Yeah.
And you do have to give it the runway of like, okay, you won some stuff. Okay, good. All right. We're gonna like grow that into bigger things now. And then you just kind of have to let it die on the vine at some point, or find somebody to really lead those offices. And so if we go now to subcontractors and how I think that they should like approach someone like you, it's going to these events, It's finding ways to get in front of you with a unique way to stand out. So like as a subcontractor, like, so one of the examples I want to give is like your electricians. So, not the chicken, but because they're already in that, but is to what they've done in their pre-con and fab shop is, as a GC who's after budget, your most important thing is schedule, and they're probably neck and neck and swap back and forth sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is if you can come to the table with, hey, here's some ways that we can save you time. We're not going to say that it can save you money. It'll save us money, but it'll save you time on your project, and really allow us to come in and quickly and easily knock out a project. We've done it for this guy. If you can, if you have some really good clients, get them on video to say that, you know, XYZ Electric is great at what they do, and they helped us out and saved us a bunch of time. And then you get that, you show that other tape to other contractors, you send it to them, mail it to their office. Because this is the other thing, like, everybody wants to bitch about marketing dollars. One, in construction, you can afford to send bigger shit to people. Because your list of people, right, your list of target clients, let's say you're, again, a subcontractor, your list of GCs to work for is like 20 in a given market.
Sure.
And that's like a big market.
And yeah, that's, you're going after all of them, which is probably also not the right move. But I think, you know, where you're getting at, I think, is you can shrink that number down to a, you know, pick your target. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10. You can really stretch your marketing dollars out pretty far when that group is that small.
Yeah, and so like, let's say it's 10 guys, right? And let's say that the value of a given client on a year, right? So an electrician going for a general contractor. Let's say that, you know, in year 1 you're going to do $1 million, and let's say you have 10% net margin with them. So you're going to do $100,000 in net profit. It would behoove you to spend $1,000 to win that client. Like, that's 100 times return on investment.
Pretty good investment.
So, like, but this is the math that in contracting, you know, like in widget sales, right? They talk about return on ad spend, and like 1.5 to 2 is like killer, right? So you spent $50, you made like 75 or 100, and you had 1 million people to sell your widget to. So, you know, your bottle of water or case or pallet or whatever. So you made, again, 1 million times $25. You have you made 25 million in that deal because you had 1 million people to sell it to. But if you're now looking at where you have 10 clients and you make $100,000 on each of them, so now you're $1 million a year net business, which ain't nothing to shake a stick at.
Right.
But in that, like, if you spend $1,000 on each of them, but this is where people get like gun shy. You know, like, you're talking about charity events, and that's significantly more. You know, you're talking 50, 100, depending on how many events you're going to and how much you're bidding on it and how many drinks you have before the bidding starts.
Oh yeah. It adds up fast, and the pops you have beforehand are there strategically, right? Talking from someone who has both attended a lot and continues to attend a lot of events, and now we're also putting them on. That booze is there for a reason, more so than just everybody having a good time. Because when you get down to the end of it, you know, your people are going to spend a lot of money, and you want them to have fun doing it. You want them to want to do it, right? And that's part of it. That's part of the game.
Well, that's just it. So you can spend, let's just say, $1,000 a year on clients, and that's probably a low value, but like $1,000 and doing some cool stuff, like making some, you know, custom backpacks, some custom gifts, some, you know, a cool knife, a great shot glass, or a custom glass, or a custom this, that, or the other thing. You can make $1,000 go really far.
Oh yeah.
But most people, like in most marketing, it's not quote worth it, right? Your clients are worth, again, $25 net. Like, you want to, if you take that same 10% or 1%, like, you're spending, 25 cents. You can't get anything for 25 cents, right? Like, that's just not a thing. Or 250, like, here's a pen,
Yeah, I mean, it's economies of scale, and it goes back to where we started the conversation, right? We're talking about multi-million-dollar projects. You'd be a damn fool to not see the value in spending something with that sort of return on investment. It's a hard market to get into. It's a hard market to stay into. There are not an unending number of clients out there, right? It's not the widget market where that there's going to be millions of people buying your junk, always. Millions of people don't build $1 million buildings. It'd be a different world if we did. So the competition is fierce, and getting in front of people, building those relationships and fostering them and really caring for those relationships is what will continue to take you farther.
And as a start, right, because that's where everybody has a question. So as a start, as a contractor, you're going to have to do some very unorthodox stuff, like you're broke, like, at the beginning, right? So you're going to have to, like, hand deliver some stuff, maybe with gas you put in the mail, but you figure out ways to, like, get stuff in front of people. You buy the FedEx envelope and you don't actually mail it with FedEx, but you drop it in the mail slot up front, again, because you don't want to pay for the FedEx postage. But, like, this is the whole point of a lot of this stuff. You can use, like, the envelopes or the mailers without having to pay for postage, and you drop in the slot yourself up front. You send cookies to somebody. You send donuts. You drop stuff off at their offices. You show up, and be around and do that kind of thing to where you get in the door. And especially as a startup, a contractor just getting in the door with some guys, maybe you got, you in a truck. You've got to, like, grind at it for a little bit, make in good graces with the contractors that you want to work with, right? And, like, let them also know that, like, hey, man, we can only do certain size projects because we can't fund it, like, all this stuff. And
right.
Be honest with those guys, because you don't want to go out of business for getting too much work.
Yeah, that's the definite flip side that no one wants to see. I would add that you got to be calculated in how you approach these relationship building endeavors too. You don't want to be the asshole. You don't. There's a certain mechanical contractor who I won't name that for years, like clockwork, their business development guy would show up in my office once every couple weeks or every month, whatever it was. Nice enough guy. We'd have conversations sometimes, but then it just came to, I would see him and I would, like, grimace, like, oh shit, he's here again. And the first thing out of his mouth after he said, hey, how's it going? You got anything we can bid on? Any work we can look at? And I would just tell him, like, Dave, like, this isn't how this is going to work, right? You're now becoming an annoyance. I try to shut my door before you see that I'm in my office. Like, if you want to have an actual conversation and get to know me, or work on something other than just stuffing your coffers, like, there's a right way to do this and there's a wrong way to do it. That's the wrong way to do it for anything. And I think it goes with, it's no different than me, cold calling and spamming every decision maker type role I find on LinkedIn, right? Then all of a sudden now you become an annoyance. And I don't know. I mean, there's ways to bring value to relationships, and there's ways to try to use a relationship strictly for a one-sided gain.
Yeah, like, you gotta have some conversations with people, like, make them bring it up, almost.
Bring some value.
It's that, like, so let's go back to, like, your electrical contractors, right? They're prefab and they're doing stuff in their own shop. They're really innovating in a way that would save you time. So if they sent you a video saying, like, hey, we did this, this, and this on this project. Here's that contractor, singing our praises, right? Third party validation of how we did it. Here's a picture and video of our shop and this process, and then here's like some video montage of us installing stuff. For you doing that, and then like a flip book with pictures and that's spiral bound, and they deliver that to your door. Their business development guy did that off the start. That would set the stage for a whole other conversation, because you put that value up front and like, this is our process, this is how we work, this is how we can save you time, effort, energy, money, whatever, cut schedule, which is money to you, then that allows you to then, as the BD guy for the electrician or the owner or whatever of that electrical contractor, hey Matt, I wanted to maybe answer some questions that you had on that pre-con and like the fabrication pieces that we did. Like, what can I help answer? And then you go one of two ways. Like, I haven't watched the video yet. I keep meaning to, or like, hey, I lost it, or yeah, I threw that away, and like, or oh yeah, no, I had this, and this question. I've been meaning to get back to you, or can you walk me through this, and this? And then that opens up, subsequent conversations each time about how they can add value to what you do, whether it happens right then and there doesn't really matter. And then you're looking for ways like, why aren't my guys doing this? Or you bring it to your electricians, and then maybe they don't do it or can't or whatever. So then you try those guys out on a new project, and that's 6 months later, and that shortened the whole cycle, because again, you start up front with value in like a gift box, basically, that then you can follow up on the tremendous value provided up front for the duration of the relationship.
Yeah, and it's not to say like I want a gift, but I want value. I want to build a relationship. I want to be, when I see Dillon walking through the parking lot, I want to say, okay, let's brew a pot of coffee, or grab a beer out of the fridge, and let's take half an hour and chat. Not, oh shit, Dillon's coming in again. He's going to come right up and he's going to beg for work, and he's not going to have any substance to what he's doing, and that's the part that makes me crazy. But to start with value, and then it's just fostering a relationship, and it's the long game. It's the long game in sales on any side of the table in this commercial construction world, right? I had a carpenter reach out to me on LinkedIn. He's been following my junk, and listens to the podcast and whatnot, and he reached out and just said, hey, I like what you're doing. Your stuff is pretty cool, blah, blah, blah. If you ever want to grab coffee or lunch, I'd be happy to sit down and chat with you, or whatever, something like that. We set up and we went and met for coffee, I think I talked to the guy for an hour and a half. And, I make no qualms against saying that, like, we have a core team of contractors we work with. But I also know that as my boat's growing bigger and bigger, that team's going to have to get bigger and bigger too, because Carpenter A isn't going to be able to perform physically on all of these projects we're doing, because they just don't have the capacity. So now what this guy's done, this new guy, is he's essentially secured himself a seat at the table. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but maybe in 6 months or in a year, when we're looking at the next next project period, something's going to spark in my mind and say, hey, I'm going to give this dude a shot. And that's how that game works. And it's the same with me going to owners, right? Me going to all these charity events and shaking hands and kissing babies and doing that routine, I don't expect to walk out of that golf outing with a contract signed. It doesn't work that way. But if I keep doing this and I keep shaking those same hands and kissing the same babies, for not to sound creepy, I know that eventually one of them is going to call me. When they have a need, they're going to say, hey, that dude who's always at the golf outings, let's at least have a talk. And you do that by bringing value, period.
Yeah, you're not looking but this is the whole thing. Like, if you're going after, let's just say, because this is like the practical side of it. If you got 10 firms, you got 2 guys in each firm. So you're looking for, you got 20 people. You can spend some time to do some research to figure out what those people like, what they do, where they go, ask around about them, to figure out something that interests them. And then you can go in and have a conversation with the guy that you're somewhat knowledgeable about football or their sports team or, you know, whatever they care about, you know, or high school basketball, like whatever it might be that they like care about, and you can show up at those events. You can, you know, talk to them about that at the next outing and really strike up a real conversation with people. And again, ultimately it'll come back to you and they'll ask about what you do and all this other stuff. But if you give first, then you set it up to where when they do come back, they're drawn to you. You're not necessarily pulling them in, right, or pushing them towards you. They're just magnetically attracted to who you are.
Yeah, and it's, you know, you'd be amazed at how easy it is to find some snippet of common ground with virtually any person you could ever run across, whether it's dogs or kids or boats or baseball, you know, anything. There's as humans, we have that benefit, right? There's some snippet somewhere where every single one of us has something in common, at least enough to just spark a casual conversation. And that's all it takes. It's lighting the match to burn the woods down, right? Eventually, that spark's going to get moving, and you know, you just got to be. You can't be afraid to talk to people and to be human and to not be a sales robot.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't necessarily want to cold call, door knock, that type of stuff, you know, send these care packages, send a handwritten note, do other things that they then call you. You know, it's a warm intro at that point.
Do a newsletter.
Yeah, the newsletter, you know, like I've been sending out, which I'm now sending out to a lot of prospects, and they're just going to get it every month. So if you're listening to this and you're on that list, well, you're getting a letter. And that's what it is. You know, like I used to include sales letter and pitches, and the way that I've moved it is, you know, it's just going to be my value ladder, and this is what I offer, and if you want to come into my world, here's how to do it. No other offer needed within the newsletter, and just a way to connect with people. And I mean, it's already paid for itself for life, so
it's huge. I read it. I mean, you kind of nailed that format, in that you're providing value and you're asking for nothing in return. You're providing a monthly dose of insights into the market, industry tips, you know, you name it, marketing tips. You're providing value, and you're not the guy knocking on the door begging for something, because nobody likes that. But you've stuff like the newsletter, stuff like, you know, a mailing or a quarterly postcard, even, you know, just, you want to keep top of mind, but you got to do it in a way that you're not being annoying as shit. Because I mean, we're all so busy. The way, you know, your newsletter is a great example. I get that, and I read it on my own time. I can pick and choose when I want to tear it open and sit down and focus on it, versus the guy who's knocking on my door begging for something to bid on. You know, it just, there's a right way to do this and a wrong way.
it goes to like, how do you want to be known and remembered when you show up? And it's just like going to the bar, it's like dating, you know, it's like any of that, right? If you're the old dude sitting in the stool at the end of the bar, that's a lonely place. Well, you probably got some pretty good friends, but like you're not picking up anybody, right? Like you're there for social with the guys that you're typically there to hang out with at the bar or the golf club or whatever. But if you really want to like set it up, you have to be sought after, you have to be wanted, you have to be the life of the party. So in hosting events, right, and hosting charities, in being a sponsor donor, and going up and giving talks that brings people to you rather than you going to them. Now, having the money to do that in the first place, you reach a point to where now you can attract more. But if you don't have the money, it's doing things like, yes, you send the newsletters. They're cheap. It's under $1, per prospect. Then on top of that, you look at what are other ways that you can show up that attracts people to you. What event can you kind of co-host, or what place can you get a speaking piece at that you then record on video and blast out to, on LinkedIn or whatever. Like, there's a lot of ways to create a stage presence for yourself without actually having a lot of money. Go speaking at Chamber, go speaking at Better Business Bureau, go speaking at Toastmasters, or all these other things that can put you on a stage and a pedestal that, whether you've earned it or not, give you a higher standing and clout to bring people and attract them to you. And again, having a better story to tell helps a lot of that. I mean, the podcast that we do is free. You can do this on your iPhone. It's
yeah. I mean, it's relatively easy. It's a commitment, right? It's a commitment to showing up every week and providing value, or at least trying to provide value.
Yeah, tips, tricks, all that kind of stuff work really well. So, I mean, we've hammered here on B2B and relationships, but the reason that I wanted to cover this today and with Matt and doing it here is, I mean, that's the whole reason this podcast exists, is relationships, is providing value. It's why we're in Raleigh today, is you give long enough that good things happen, and don't ever take it for granted. And I think a lot of the sales culture, the stuff you might see online, the hacks that people talk about in sales, it's all meant for, like, you're hawking some used cars, or a sofa, or you're selling in retail, or some other type sales environment where it's the worst thing that person has to lose is the $500 or $1,000 or $20 or whatever that they're looking to spend on your deal, right? Or even their car, right? They bought it for $50 and these days, shit, you can sell it for more, but if you got it for MSRP. But, like, this is the whole point, is, like, they're out a couple $100. Whoop-de-doo. You make a bad decision in construction, like, there goes your job. It's very different stakes in B2B and in construction specifically.
Yeah. I mean, that risk is the name of the game, right? That's why we love what we do. That's why we're all in this industry. But there is huge risk on all sides of the table, all sides of every deal. And if you screw up a relationship, you could be very quickly looking for a new line of work.
It's just like they've done studies, or all the statistics for doctors, and good, bad, or otherwise, it's not whether you were a better doctor, whether you screwed up less in surgery. It was your bedside manner that determined how much you got sued.
Case in point.
It's all about the relationship.
We're human beings, right?
He was a nice guy. He sure didn't mean to leave that in me, Oh, it's okay.
He'll find it. Get it out.
But I mean, seriously, like, that's how that and we're doing it in the grainy voice because that's who would do it, Oh, Dr. Smith didn't, really mean to leave that in me. It's okay, But that's what happens. Like, that is the legitimate, like, way that works out. They have to fix it, bring you back in, pull out the scalpel then or whatever. Like, I mean, it's funny, but, like, that's how that conversation legitimately goes.
Sure. It's just,
I mean, on the other side of that, it's like, you know, Dr. Dick over here, that son of a, he did what? He left who?
He left a pack of gauze in there on purpose, that prick.
You know, and then, oh, nice Mr. Smith's going to take this out of me because I don't want, you know, Dr. Dick to take this gauze out. You know, like, that's how that conversation, you know, they go and pick the nice doctor, even though, you know, he's got more staph infections than what, but like, that's how that, like, you go and look, because the insurance companies do all this stuff, and that's what's been proven.
Yeah.
Is that bedside manner matters more than actual skill.
Makes perfect sense.
In lawsuits, not in outcomes. Like,
it makes perfect sense, right? We're social beings. We want to have relationships. We want to have value brought and given.
well, and in so like the construction example is this, is, okay, I screw up on a project, but like, I'm nice about it, you know, or I've been nice, I've been helpful, I've been going above and beyond the entire project. Something bad happens, or something gets screwed up. The client's going to be way more lenient with me on that screw up. Like, yes, and I'll go and fix it, right? Because I've done everything else right to that point, but just a mistake happened. Like, I'm probably not going to get sued for it. It'll just get fixed. The client will probably pay for it, you know, as an engineer, because, like, that's just how that would work out. Maybe I don't, like, the firm would owe something, maybe, but more likely it just gets taken care of. Client pays a little bit for it and is happy to do that, and we move on. Like, that's what goodwill buys you.
Goodwill and good contracts.
Those for sure help. But that's, I mean, but that's the value of relationships.
Yeah.
You know, like, no one even went and looked at the contract.
Right.
They just said fix it.
Well, yeah, actually, now that you say that, it's when they do go look at the contract that you know you've already screwed up on the relationship side. If they're looking at that contract instead of just having a man-to-man, woman-to-woman conversation to try and solve a problem, you did something wrong already, long before you did your work goof.
Yeah. This is my other beef, which we can talk about another show, but read your contracts, guys. Know what's in them before you start.
Yeah, we should probably redo a contract show. I've got some good stories as of late, but.
All right, well, you might hear that next week. Anything else to wrap up this show? Or do we beat this relationship horse?
I think we beat the horse, so just be good to each other and don't forget where you put your pack of gauze.
You don't beat it like R. Kelly.
Gross.
Or Chris Brown or one of those guys. I don't know. Anyway, guys, enough jokes. All kidding aside, this is probably one of the more important episodes that we've done.
For sure.
Recently.
It's fitting, you know, it's a show on relationships. Dillon and I, we don't get to hang out in person often. This is the second time, really, we've ever been in the same room. So that's what it's all about, man. Building relationships, being good people. There's a lot of value out there for all of us, and this is what we're doing.
At the end of the day, you don't have to be in the same room. It helps. But you know, you can do virtual happy hours. You can do a lot of things to foster relationships, not only with your team, but with your clients, with your partners, everyone up and down the board. So probably re-listen to this episode, guys. Take it to heart, and again, understand that it's a time game. I think, me included, want this to happen sooner rather than later. But you got to understand that it takes time. It takes, you know, hours of contact, of conversation, of getting to know somebody. And, you know, like many of you and with the podcast, you know, you know us better than we know you. But that's the point, right? Is for you get to know us, what we stand for, what we care about. And then, you know, if we've done you solid and good, that you share the show. And that's all we ask, is doing this for free, to share our lessons that we've mostly learned the hard way.
Take 30 seconds and share the show. Leave us a rating. give us a review if you're feeling awfully frisky. All of those things help to keep the listenership up and growing and keep us doing this.
So, thanks guys, and until next time.